What's up, gamers? This is Screen Smash CouchSoup's one and only video game podcast. I'm your host, Dan Morris, and joining me this evening, we have a very special guest. We have Katie Baskin, community lead of Arrowhead Games. Hi, Katie.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. It's been probably the wildest month of my life because we released HellDivers 2.
Why is that? But
HellDivers 2 has landed.
Together for victory.
Together for liberty.
Yeah.
You mean that little indie game, HellDivers 2?
It could have been an indie game. Probably we expected it to be a little bit more indie than it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely gone a lot harder than anyone imagined, I'm sure.
Definitely. I think we can call it officially maybe viral.
Do video games go viral? I guess they sure could.
It feels like this has. It feels like we've hit the viral stage.
Mm.
We're getting sent, TikTok accounts, and it's wild.
It sure is. And I'm very happy to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Also, we have the one and only Reza.
Fight the good fight. Okay. See, not too crazy today.
Not too crazy.
That's good.
I'm subduing.
Not blowing out our eardrums. We appreciate it. We're going down the rabbit holes like some games do, because along with Katie here, who's also a big fan of Remedy games, and those games tend to be very like the Ouroboros of just crazy deep dives. We're going to spend a few minutes getting to know you a little bit, Katie. We're going to talk a little bit about HellDivers 2 and the massive success it is, and just some of your favorite types of video games and just how you got here. So
let's do it.
Let's start off with learning a little bit about you, Katie.
Oh, gosh. Well, I have been working at Arrowhead Game Studios since the start of 2022. I started in January and have been on HellDivers 2 the whole time. I also take care of like the studio accounts. I deal with their social and their communities, and it was interesting to come into the original HellDivers community because I played a little bit of HellDivers, but I'm certainly not like a hardcore player, so I wasn't in that community at all. So it was really interesting to step into a place that's in progress. It has its own veterans, its own scene. So that was really fun. Previously, I worked on Ion Fury with the guys at Void Point. And I also did a little indie game called AWOL. It's on Steam. You can go play it. I made it with my friends. It was based on a Duke Nukem mod from long ago. So yeah, that's really it. I'm kind of known on the internet for now HellDivers 2, but before that I was known for my love of Remedy games. So that's me.
Yeah. And to give ourselves a little pat on the back, you and I both are affiliated with the Reload magazine.
We are.
We work and contribute on the Reload magazine, covering the old, not old, but modern retro FPS indie games and such, which is partly how we were able to make this connection, and I'm very thankful for that. Yeah, it's been great being a part of that community, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you for telling us about your involvement there at Arrowhead. That's really cool to hear. I know you got more to tell us on that, but let's move on to a little bit more on just HellDivers 2 and the big old viral internet explosion that is, which is funny because I brought up HellDivers 2 on the podcast here a few weeks ago, during the Sony State of Play, and I said, hey, why don't we do a quick preview for this game, back when it was still like, what was that game that people talked about on the State of Play? Nobody knew. I talked to you a little bit about it in the Reload Discord, and I was like, you know what, this game looks really fun. It's very like Starship Troopers. It looks like it's just going to be a giant shit show, killing your friends on accident, but maybe not so much on accident sometimes. And I was like, this looks fun. So I wanted to cover it, and we did a preview. And then, of course, that game just exploded. Literally, it hell dived into just a giant nuke explosion of popular craziness. So
it's it's the state of play. That was a great night because we led that show. We were the first trailer. And then Herman Hulst came out and said that like we were ushering in a great year of games. And of course, we don't know what those shows are going to be like or anything. We're here like, oh, you're going to have a trailer in it, I guess. And then when that happened, we were watching with the community and got to experience that with them, and then hear those really kind words. That was really nice. To, feel like we were going to be a success, or that, people were excited about our game. And of course, at that point, our community had maybe like, how big was our Discord then? It was under 40,000 users. I think we had ballooned to like 20,000. And that was like the original projection for our community size. Of course, we do most of our community outreach on Discord. And we're thinking like 20,000, 25,000 max. That's going to be the size, based on the number of players we thought we'd have, the community size for the original game. And, you do your best guesses when you build a community program. And we are about to hit 700,000 in our Discord now. It's like after the game came out, it was just people just started pouring in. I mean, it was incredible. Like the launch weekend was obviously the most exciting thing that I've ever participated in. But I was sitting there like glued to the scroll that was our community and like our social followers just skyrocketing. And I'm like, what is happening? Who told them about HellDivers? Because we just had no idea that it would resonate so strongly with people. But it really has, and it makes sense to me. I remember that freak out, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm like, no, this is how it should be because this game is awesome. I mean, when I interviewed at Arrowhead, you have to sign the NDA and then they show you the work in progress. And I saw a little bit of the game in development. And even then, back when it was still like very much a work in progress, immediately it's like, I gotta work on this game. I gotta be a part of this. This is going to be bigger than anybody thinks it is. But still, we didn't know it would be this big. But I certainly didn't think that I would be dealing with something this size either. I mean, I have experience in community management. I'm certainly not like scared of a big community, but wow. Just unbelievable. And immediately like the fan art started, the creator content came out, and I'm blown away by like all these talented people. I don't know if you've seen any of the cosplayers, especially on Twitter. Absolutely phenomenal. People who are making like full Helldiver armor that I'm blown away. It's amazing.
I haven't seen the Helldiver specific armor, but I mean, our own Jake Brown here on our show does cosplay, and he does Gears of War builds. Like he does the Gears of War armor and stuff. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me, especially with what I've seen from like Spartans and stuff. But that's still awesome. Really cool. And I think it's extremely heartwarming to think about you guys as a studio not being prepared at the reception and just, sitting there like a bunch of geeky little friends, like, oh, please, and like hearing the story of how you guys were, a part of that experience so much that you didn't know, like you were like, here's our trailer. We don't know what you're doing with it. And then just to watch that whole thing explode out of control like that. And
yeah,
that's something I've always liked about our show here. And I like to try to communicate to any of our listeners that like developers are people too, Yeah.
And all of us were, most of the studio comes from like a very indie games mindset. Like we have a lot of talent coming from AAA studios, but most of them come to Arrowhead thinking like, I want to work in indie games. Even when I applied, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm probably going to work on like a top-down shooter like HellDivers. And then this game just, it's different. But nobody in the studio has abandoned that indie mindset, which just, it makes it a great place to work.
So I have a question about that pretty specifically. Like I'm so captivated by like we're talking about here. Basically, coming from a community also that supported and created itself, so I think that we have a commonality there.
Yeah, CouchSoup for sure.
Oh, big time, absolutely. But I want to ask you, like, what would you consider are some of the challenges that you didn't have the foresight for, that you're starting to get used to, that you're starting to really understand from going from something so, I don't even want to say minuscule, because it wasn't really small. It wasn't like, HellDivers 1 was relatively not very well known, but it wasn't like
it did really well.
It did really well. So, I mean, there's certain things that you were prepared for, that you understood. But when this kind of a thing happens, what kinds of new things are you seeing that's like, oh, this is no longer this. This is this.
Well, there's good and there's bad. With community specifically, communication becomes both easier and way more difficult. Like, it gets easier because your socials are blown up. People are watching them. You have, anytime we do something fun on socials, we get picked up by like major outlets now. Like PC Gamer's going to write an article about it, which is weird. I was not expecting that.
You put a tweet out on PC Gamer's like, they tweeted.
Oh my God. So embarrassing. Like, awesome. But also, I had an article about me in PC Gamer. We'll talk about that. Because that's part of my challenge thing. Because on the flip side, when you want to talk to people individually, there is no individually anymore. You can't really communicate on the same intimate scale that you have with a smaller community. Like, before the launch, before February 8th, the day that will live in infamy, before that, we had a small enough community that, you could sit and talk with them really easily for a couple of hours every day. And it felt like nothing. It felt like you could get to know people. You would see the same nicknames. Now, that is really difficult because there's almost 700,000 people in this Discord. I don't have as much ability to get to know like individual fans. Still, I do, but it's so much more difficult because there's so many people. And certainly it creates problems from a technical standpoint because I have my direct messages open on Discord. If you don't, you'll have people constantly pinging you anyway. So I just leave them open. If players have questions, if they need something, they can reach out. And I got a lot more messages than I was expecting after launch, like hundreds of message requests. You look at that badge in Discord and the number just keeps like going up. And I replied to them as best I could, and I'm replying to them throughout the day. And then suddenly, as I'm almost clear of my message queue, my Discord was disabled, like gone, locked out. I was locked out of my account completely. And then I got an email that said, "Hey, you're sending too many messages too fast. We think you're a bot." So no more Discord for you.
So the whole the reason why it exists is like, no, that's too much. No, we didn't expect anybody to actually use it. No, I'm sorry.
we think that you're automating your replies somehow because they're going out too quickly. Totally makes sense, but I didn't even know that they had a limitation like that, and I wouldn't have thought I would reach it. Certainly, so that would be.
I think you're underestimating your own ability. Because apparently you're like on a robotic level of like being capable of this. So kudos, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, you are crushing it so hard.
I did have several of my coworkers message me over the launch weekend and say, like, you are a machine, but you need to go to sleep. Like, you need to get some rest. Because that was another thing. We originally thought that like a single community manager would cover it. No, not anymore. We have 3 now. I am the lead, and I have 2 others on the team with me. No way. Arguably, we should have more than that. But yeah, I got locked out of Discord, and that would be the day that I reached out to them on Twitter, and of course, opened a support ticket. And then our CEO escalated it. And then PC Gamer wrote an article about me getting locked out of my Discord. What
Really?
the hell?
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. And my brush with fame would be me getting locked out of my account.
So I was gonna follow up with that part, being like, so I'm assuming that there's a lot more scrutiny attached to it. That like you're looking at, like I said, like what you used to be able to say. I guess the best way I can probably kind of like interloop it is with like a comedian who's just really starting to take off, is capable of making certain kinds of jokes at certain points. And then now you have to like really be a little more sequestered to the things that you were able to reach out to because of so many different people coming to this new community.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really sit and chat as openly with people as I used to, because now I have a joke with my moderation team in Discord that anytime I say anything, I'm just immediately mobbed. That they're like, she's online. We have questions. We got to ask you something about the war bond. I want to know about this weapon you nerfed. And I'm like, I don't know. Please stop yelling at me. Because I mean, that is something that comes along with it. You have gamers who are upset, and it's a lot more upset people than we thought we would have.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I imagine, because I know like that opening week of the game, like the servers were constantly berated with new players and crashing. So I can only imagine how stressful that was. It was stressful at times. It was mostly stressful because we weren't prepared to have so many players in North America. And of course, we're here in Sweden, and North American like hours that people play video games is when we're all asleep. Right.
So when things were going wrong, they were going wrong in America. And our tech team and myself and a bunch of other employees, I mean, we were all awake for days at a time, which, you know, we're not crunch people or anything, but it was kind of an emergency situation. So yeah, it was intense.
Yeah. I still remember
Like.
the first few days after HellDivers 2 came out, and we were lovingly, cranking out on that. And I was talking to one of our friends of the show here, Baron, about it. And he was like, yeah, I want to play, but I keep getting like server issues. And I was like, I haven't had a single problem. I got right in. And he was like, I hate you. It's like, I didn't know this was a problem. And then that's when I started looking into it and seeing like, oh, apparently a lot of people are having a hard time getting logged in or staying logged in because of the server.
I'm glad we've kind of gone beyond that now. Like, there are still hiccups, but everything is much more stable.
Well, I heard somebody making mention about it in one of the updates that I was listening to. And I like what he said, where he goes, it's actually like from a developer standpoint, that's a really good issue to have, is too many people are playing our game. Yay.
My favorite meme from our launch, and it was actually on the cover of my sentiment report for our launch period. Somebody took the DJ Khaled Suffering from Success album cover and they put the HellDiver on the front. HellDivers 2 Suffering from Success, because man, we were.
That's a good problem to have for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, because like around that time, that's when they added the defense mode. Like there was that new defend mission where you had to like escort civilians from the automatons. And the first time we tried playing that, I put it on easy or trivial, whatever difficulty, and we were getting annihilated. And it was just constant beratement of these automatons, and like all the people were glitching. Like they would stop in the door and not leave, and we're like, "This is impossible! Like, what is happening?" And I'm like, "It's got to be bugged or something."
Those were tough. And of course, people ran into all kinds of issues that sometimes we can replicate, sometimes we can't. I just found those really difficult because I'm not that good at the game. Like I'll be the first one to admit it. I suck at HellDivers. I love to play it. It's so much fun. But everybody wants to, like, I have a lot of people who want to play it with me. And I'm like, no, you don't want to see how bad I am at this. But those missions, the escorting the civilians, was actually one of my favorite moments. That I had never played one of those, even in testing. I just, sometimes we don't get around to it. Certainly, they're not clamoring for the community team to hop in and test things all the time. So I hadn't played one of those, and I got to play one, with everybody else. And I had no idea that when you open the door to let the civilians out, that there's a voiceover line where one of them goes, "It's the HellDivers." Perfect. Love it. Love it. I had never heard that before. It was great.
Speaking of amazing dialogue in that game, I can't tell you how perfect it was the first time that me and my girlfriend Brandy booted the game up, and we were taking it slow because Brandy isn't like, I'm not gonna say she's a bad gamer or anything, but she takes time to get adjusted, especially to new games and hectic shooters for that matter. And the first level we dropped down, I'm like, okay, we'll put it on easy, we'll take our time, we'll go at your pace, no problem. And of course, Brandy being Brandy, she finds a flamethrower.
Oh God!
And she goes into a swarm of bugs where we have to take out like the nests and kill all the eggs. And she just starts ripping this flamethrower. And Brandy starts going, "Ah!" And then her Helldiver goes, "Ah!" So in sync, her and her Helldiver are screaming. And I'm in the other room like, do you hear what's happening right now?
I love it.
It was a beautiful symphony of destruction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he and I were doing the same thing also. Like we love those kinds of games that get really hectic. You get into it. You are immersed completely. You forget that you're in a room in your house and you're
with a controller.
You got a controller. No, I don't. I have a full flamethrower. I am taking out this nest and I am going to feel it. And that's so. I love that.
Yeah. I love just the comedic timing of this game too. It's so like it takes Starship Troopers and like almost puts it to shame in like comedic timing that the game does. And I love it. I love how extreme it is. And I'm always trying to do the funniest, goofiest things I can when I'm playing the game. Like the first time I played it, one of the main things I started doing was when I realized that when you dive, how silly it is, especially if you dive backwards and your Helldiver just kind of throws their arms up. And I'm like, why are they throwing their arms up? I don't know why. It's funny looking. I'm gonna keep doing it. And then it was a snow level. I jumped off a cliffside and like you straight like face plant in the snow, and it's like a cartoon with your legs up in the air. I'm like, this is so perfect.
And if you flip around, you can make snow angels. Woo! I do that.
I want to do that.
I need to play more. I haven't played enough of the game. That's the sad thing, is I have not played enough.
Oh my God.
I have not had the time to play in the last like week or so. Because that's another ironic thing. When you work on a game, boy, it's hard to find time to play it.
Right.
I feel like I should make an excuse to play it during work hours, but
yeah,
that makes me
it brings me back to like, this is like flashbacks now to like all my years working at GameStop, and people would come into the store and ask me about certain games, and I'd be like, I haven't played that game, and they're like, how? And I'm like, I'm here. I'm working. I'm like, what do you think I do when I'm here? And they're like, you don't just sit back there and play video games all day? Like, no. I'm here selling video games.
Disappointingly, no.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was a bartender, I'd want to be able to tell them, well, okay, this beer, so hey, boss, I gotta know.
Like, hang on, I'll let you know in a second. You pour it. Like,
how many did it take to make it slice? I'm doing research. Shut up.
It's very critical.
I need to know. They need to know. I know. They trust me.
Important research.
You could trust me. Yeah. So I mean, hey, you found a loophole. It's like, no. If I need to be able to tell them, communicate,
it's true.
What the issues are, I need to experience them.
Well, I mean, embarrassingly, the community will ask me questions like, what's your favorite stratagem? And they expect me to have like meta answers. Yeah. And I'm like, I like the machine gun turret because it's cool. And they'll be like, the flamethrower's not that good. And I'm like, oh, I like it. It shoots fire.
I could be like, I like the machine gun turret because I accidentally kill myself with it constantly. I like the grenade launcher because I accidentally kill myself with it constantly. Every time I've used a grenade launcher, that son of a bitch will bounce off the head of a bug and hit me in the face.
Yeah, my partner loves the grenade launcher, and he kills both of us. Yeah. I carry the stalwart, the lightweight machine gun.
Those are good.
I love it. And people will tell me like, "Ew, why do you carry that?"
I switched to the stalwart, and I actually prefer it now.
It's the best.
It's good.
I'll take no substitutes. I think it's awesome. And I also love incendiary mines, and everybody else hates those, but I love them. And that's the thing. You can, we do have like our hardcore players who are like, no, you have to bring these stratagems with you, but you can play with whatever you want.
Yeah. Play what's fun for you.
Yeah.
That's all that matters, right? It's all about having the fun. And I have a lot of fun playing the game regardless. Especially like,
and that's good.
I'm going to minimize killing my friends, but sometimes I might do it because it's funny. So,
well, I played with a friend not too long ago, and he was brand new to the game, and he got in a tight spot. Some Terminids were chasing him, and I'm just like watching him run back and forth across the screen. And I was like, well, I have a shot. I'll take the shot. I ended up killing him. And I was like, look, I had to kill you in order to save you from all the bugs. Do what you got to do.
This is how I save you.
How did you want to go? Like with a loving friend taking care of you, or
putting you out of your misery?
To make another Starship Troopers reference, there's a scene when the guy gets plucked off by the bugs, and then he just shoots the guy instead of shooting the bug.
I'd expect anyone in this unit to do the same for me.
He's like,
doing you a favor.
the lesser way to go.
I do these things because I love you. Okay, I need you to understand how much I care.
Because HellDivers is all about friendship,
friendship and love. I love it, and democracy.
It's called friendly fire. Hello?
Exactly. And that does add such a level of chaos to the game that I can't get enough of. I never thought that I would love a friendly fire game. That's something that, me throughout my life, I don't think I would have ever voluntarily played a game with friendly fire in it, but in HellDivers it works.
Oh yeah, it's great. I called that too when I first started talking about playing HellDivers. I'm like, I'm so going to get killed by my friends so much. And the funny thing too is like, I think the worst problem is when your friends think you killed them, but you didn't, but then they're dead. It's like you absolutely just blew me up. Like I was doing this. I was over here. I couldn't have done that. No, like I exploded, and there was no other way I could have exploded unless you did it.
It was your fault. Yeah, it is a game that can breed grudges if you're not careful.
Well, you got to know what you're in for.
So fun. I still I never get tired of just anytime your HellDivers interacting with a screen and they're just like just jabbing the screen with their finger. That tickles me every time. That's so good. All right. Before we move on, is there anything you would like to tell your community that might be listening here today?
I love you all so much, even though you are a literal cage of rabid raccoons. You're all wonderful. You're my raccoons, and I love you.
You're my monsters. Just HellDiver hug.
That's an old joke. That's an old joke from before launch, was that I used to call them a cage full of raccoons. Because that's what it felt like. They were very excited about HellDivers.
more of like the rabid kind, or more of like the really cute ones that do the jazz hands, or
they
mix
could
of
be
them all.
both. They could be both. If they felt like we were going to give like another trailer, if we were going to drop more information, they became rabid. They were crazy. The hype was hyping.
And then once they got it, it's the jazz hands.
Yeah, once they got a new trailer, they're like, wee.
Oh, I love these analogies.
All right, so I'm sure there's plenty of HellDiver fans out there that don't want us to stop talking about HellDivers, but I also want to spend some time talking about some other things with our lovely guest, Katie, and some of her other passions, like indie games and horror games and Remedy. So, Louis and I are both also big indie game and horror game fans. We've also both indulge in some Remedy from time to time. So,
like it's a drug.
I'm going to start on the horror aspect of things because that's my sweet spot. That's my jam. I do love my horror games, and I want you to tell us a little bit, like, what are some of your favorite horror games?
Oh, Lord.
Cherry pick.
I mean, I feel like
No.
I feel like if I say the obvious, that I'm phoning it in. But I mean, Silent Hill 2, right? That's
Yes.
I don't
one
think
of the
that's
best
obvious,
ever.
honestly.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
Well-
okay, that's like saying, you know, The Shining is a great horror movie.
Silent Hill 2 is very
you
famous, but it's
should.
also
It-
very niche at the same time.
True. I remember a time when it was not regarded as like a perfect horror game. I've been a fan of that entire series from the start, and even maybe over and above like Resident Evil. I loved Resident Evil, but then when the first Silent Hill came out, oh boy, that was the kind of thing I was looking for. Because I don't know, I had really weird parents who did not restrict me from watching any movies I wanted or playing any games I wanted. So I grew up loving things like Hellraiser. And
This is a literal
then,
conversation that Louie and I have had multiple times, so you're good.
Oh, yes.
what a relief. So yeah, I had 80s parents who were very permissive, and that translated to the video games that I ended up enjoying. Like my brother was the one who first got me into Silent Hill. As he played it on like one of those kiosks in a Toys R Us before it came out.
Silent Hill and a Toys R Us.
In a Toys R Us.
Really?
I mean, it was just a different time. The 90s were just different.
Oh, yeah.
You could get
Sharp
away with a lot
objects
of
strewn
things.
about.
Yeah,
It
why
was
not?
fine.
Why not?
I mean, I remember toys back then that could actually do just as much damage as an actual knife. I mean,
Yeah, things that were just all kinds of choking hazards and made out of like
and
sharp
you can
metal
get
pieces.
them at Toys R Us.
Metal
Exactly.
transformers that weighed like 25 pounds.
Objects that you could bludgeon your little sister with.
With
I'm talking about a thing that's actually happened to me.
I assume.
Bludgeoned with a transformer.
and you
but
just
yeah.
transported yourself back a little bit. Kind of,
It's like, oh wow, that just
Come right
unlocked a
back.
memory.
yeah.
So he played it on the kiosk and then called me. He had already moved away and was living on his own because he's quite a bit older than I am. And he called me at home and he's like, new game coming out. And then he tells me about the demo for Silent Hill. And I'm like, this is everything I've ever wanted in a game. It sounds like it's going to traumatize me. I can't wait. And then every game in the series just felt like another level of traumatizing myself. So yeah, probably 2 and 3 in that series are my favorites. But certainly lately, No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. What the fuck? That game is so good. And I keep going back to it. Have you guys played it?
I haven't played that one, no.
Oh man.
I am
you
looking
gotta
it up
play
right
it.
now. Where
Oh
am I
my
going?
God. It's so good. Definitely inspired by all of the great horror games that came out on the PlayStation. What a weird console that was. So many good horror games, but definitely that game feels like it's right up there. Like it's the vibe. Like really H.P. Lovecraft inspired as well. You know, maybe some people would call it a walking simulator. I hate that term. I think that's unfair.
It depends.
Oh, thank
it
you.
depends.
I just
I don't care, even if it is like, even if they describe it as a walking simulator, the point of it is it's not just to be walking around. Like it's an interaction thing. Like,
yeah.
you know, why did Silent Hills do so damn well if walking simulators are trash? Shut up. They're just not all done well. Some of them suck.
Yeah.
Some of them are just jump scares. Okay, yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry, but there's a reason why they exist. So stop talking trash.
I feel like they're experiences. You know,
Yes.
that a game is in itself an experience, and they will have different things to offer different people. But usually when I see walking simulator, it's being levied as like an insult, which is, you know, I just don't think that's good.
No,
If I could
it's not
make
fair.
any comparison, because like I've been very adamant on this show about my dislike for the hidey horror, because I like engaging horror, I like active horror, I like more aggressive horror for the most part. But on that line, there's games like Outlast or what's the other, Amnesia, where you're just supposed to hide from the bad thing. And those games bore me because I'm like, I don't like sitting here just waiting to not be found. I don't like playing hide and seek so much. Like, I get why they're popular. I get why people like them. They're just not for me. But on the flip side, a walking simulator, the first thing that comes to my mind is Mortuary Assistant.
Oh, God.
I love that game.
It's so good.
I love that game. And you absolutely just walk around and occasionally dissect a body. But the horror is so good.
Yeah.
It's so well presented and it's so well told. And it's not passive either. That's what the main reason I like it so much, because like I don't like the hidey games because they're passive. I don't like the hiding behind a box and waiting for the AI to make its roundabout and to like, oh, it's safe to go now.
Yeah. I remember being scared playing Outlast, but Amnesia didn't do it for me. I'm one of those people. I get nervous when I bring that up too, because that game has fans that are committed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
They love Amnesia, and I love what it is. I love what it did for horror games, but it just didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
You know what did though? Playing Resident Evil 7 in VR.
Oh.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
I don't know if any of you've done the VR route.
Louis is very adamant.
So good. So good.
I have finally played Resident Evil 7 in VR. Finally.
Amazing.
After like the last time we talked about it when Nick Apostolides was on the show. And I finally was like, I got to do it. I got to play it in VR.
It's great. It's great. It totally changed the experience for me. Because I really liked Resident Evil 7. That was the first Resident Evil game I got excited about in a long time. But then in VR, I don't know. I think it relates back to having those permissive parents, but I'm like a psychopath with horror. I just sit and laugh. Like when things are coming at me and killing me, I'm just like, yeah, kill me. This is great.
It's like when I play games where I'm like, I want to see how horribly I can die.
Yeah.
Especially like in games like Dead Space. I'm like, I want to see the most visceral ways that a game from Visceral Studios can kill me. Like, let me see it. Let me see the awfulness.
Proper name. There was it's funny that you're talking about like the 80s horror and everything like that, because that's basically how I grew up too. I'm a Halloween baby. October 30th is my birthday. So,
nice.
1984, I'm old. And so like we had that was how we spent my birthdays, was just horror movies and people in grotesque costumes coming up and meeting me and stuff like that. So I've been a massive fan of these kinds. Like Child's Play 1 was my favorite movie when I was like 8. So, not even, I was probably 6. And so when we went to Comic-Con, I actually met Kane Hodder, the guy that the original actor for Jason Voorhees, for those of you who don't know, that
Kane,
giant of a man. Yeah, Kane Hodder.
Wow.
Hatter? Can't remember his last name entirely perfectly, but Kane. And really, really nice guy. And I walked up and I'm just like, dude, man, I got to tell you, you're pretty much my childhood, just because of like all the ridiculous, horror that I saw when I was growing up. And he just looks at me and he's like, you had a fucked up childhood, didn't you? I'm like, yeah, probably. And then he shook my hand and I'm like, oh, this is a dream. It was so cool. But yeah, and I think you're right. Like when you have that kind of thing, for some reason, it feels better when you're playing horror. Like when if I'm playing a game that isn't genuinely scaring me, it doesn't have to necessarily be terrifying, but I have to at least have that feeling of like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And I like what Dan was saying specifically about like walking simulator. The good walking simulators are forcing you to engage. Mm-hmm. You have to find the next spot in order to make the thing work. The bad ones are walk into a room, scary thing happens, walk into the next room, scary thing. I admit that sucks. But if you have to engage, you have I have to pick that thing up. I have to pick that. Like I did a small thing where I was playing Final Fantasy. We keep saying that. I was playing Resident Evil 7.
I do that too.
Yeah, we were playing Resident Evil. I wonder why it's on our mind. We were playing Resident Evil 7, and it's called Our First Impression, where it's the first. No, 8. It was Village.
You're right. You were playing Village.
Yeah, and you have to go into the basement early in the game. You have to go into the basement. You have to open up the cabinet, and I didn't want to open the cabinet because I knew something was going to happen. So we made the joke, the 4 hours later. And there's me literally just sitting there, just like, I'm not opening it. I don't care what anyone says. It's like a 2-minute bit. So when I turn around, something's going to happen, huh? Yeah, I just don't want to do it. Called it.
Because you're expecting the trope of any horror game. You're like, once I do this thing, something else is going to happen and it's going to scare me.
Yep, and they still subverted that because it makes you do more to get to that point. I'm like, okay, that's why it's a great game.
When Silent Hill 2 came out, my brother and I we sort of started a little tradition with those games where we would have a slumber party. Like, he was a fully grown adult man with a wife and a job and completely reasonable human being. And then he would call his little sister and be like, new Silent Hill game is out. You want to come over? And I would come over and we would stay up all night long. We would play through the whole thing. And, we'd buy the strategy guide. We would get snacks, drinks, and then we would just park it for the duration. And I remember at one point, it was like 3:00 in the morning. All the lights are off. We're glued to the television and we get to a door and we have to try it. We have to try the door. And my brother just stops and he's like, I don't want to try the door because if it opens, then we got to go in that room and I don't know what's going to be in there. And I was like, you can do it. I'm here with you. It'll be okay. Whatever happens, it'll be okay. And sure enough, we went in the room and then something horrible happened. So I love it. I love it. I just kind of live for those moments.
Yeah, even when you expect it to happen, and it's still it. Some of these games are just so good that I know it's gonna happen. I know it's gonna happen, and then it happens, and it still gets you.
Yeah,
it's still a surprise. It's still okay. I didn't know it was gonna be that bad.
That's me with the in Resident Evil 2 when you run down the one hallway and the arms burst through the windows to grab you. Every time I get to that hallway, every time I stop and I look at those windows and I go, I know it's coming. I know it's coming. Here we go. And like I start walking and then they bang and I'm
it's you every time. Every time.
Now for me, it's Village, the baby. I play that. I speed run that game now. I have all the infinite ammo.
Run through the baby section too, and I'm just kind of like I've gotten it through where I never even see the baby. I don't even lay eyes on it because I had it like so perfect to just get through there without even looking at it.
Yeah, same. I'm like, I don't need to look at it. I'm gonna go over here backwards. Once I hear him, I'm gunning it that way. I don't have to look at you. Why? Why am I going to ruin my night?
Because babies are terrifying, as Max Payne taught us a long time ago.
There we go.
That's true.
Nice
Part of a nightmare. Which, to be fair, that game, it wasn't a horror game, but it did have its horrific moments, I think.
The elements. You could even make the same argument for something like Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Like some people just know how to get that little... and when when you're not expecting it, it's so much better. When you get into it in the nightmares and you're like, what is happening? I was just shooting people.
Going on?
Yeah. This isn't shooty fun stuff with, Matrix bullet time. Why am I scared? I don't like this. Well, I loved it.
Those are my favorite parts of Max Payne now. The nightmares.
The super horrible, horrifying part.
I told you I'm a psychopath. I love this stuff.
Well, it's like I get those looks too when like I'm playing horror games and I'm just like the most grotesque, awful things are happening. There's blood everywhere and people are getting ripped to pieces, and I'm just like, cool.
Yeah. Well, I'll end up saying something like that. Like I playing through PT years ago. Remember that?
I still have PT.
I did until I moved to Sweden, and now I don't anymore. But I remember walking underneath that fridge for the first time and looking up and being like, wow, games. This is awesome. Like, we're doing this. Like, this is a video game. This is a video game. Wow. Because I'm still one of those people who's blown away by what we're able to show in a horror game now. Because it used to be like your imagination. You would play something like Clock Tower. Do you remember the one on Super Nintendo with the guys with the big scissors?
Yeah.
Even though that was scary. But they've changed so much. I mean, now it's this really immersive, really... I mean, I used the word traumatizing before, but I could see how these games really would be hard for people who aren't into horror. I don't know. I'm amazed. And it's not just graphics. Because like I brought up No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. That is a low poly, like retro styled game. but it still is doing something. It's like bringing a kind of elevated horror that we didn't have, when we were children. So I'm always amazed by where we're taking these games.
I just added it to my wish list, by the way. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Like
You'll love it.
It's $4 right now on Steam. Go get it. I'm down. I could afford that.
Yeah, less than a cup of coffee, and you can have this really great game. And it's one that you will want to play again, because in my mind, it kind of sticks with you, because you play through it and you're like, wait, what just happened? And then you play through it again and you're like, oh shit, I get it now.
Yeah, the doors start opening in your mind.
Yep. Doors of perception kind of thing.
Yeah. There's so many good indie games that are doing that too, and going down those rabbit holes and like doing things that like bigger studios are either afraid or unable to do nowadays, especially with experimenting with those kind of things. And I love the surge of indie retro inspired horror games that we're seeing, especially as a Resident Evil, Silent Hill fan. There's so many freaking good ones in the works and coming, and like
the PS1 horror is getting
the PS1 horror. Right, like I've been previewing and playing a lot of like nods to like old Resident Evils and Silent Hills, and if I can, I'm going to shout out Ground Zero and Hollow Body. They're two of the most exciting games I've played that are indie developed, nods to both Silent Hill and Resident Evil respectively, and like even a little Dino Crisis. Ground Zero's got a little bit of Dino Crisis in it too. Not dinosaurs, but you'll know what I mean if you play it. It's so good.
I'm recently only really have I gotten into the more of the retro kind of stuff, because I was just kind of fixated on whatever I could get my hands on. I was so busy with work and everything like that, and really it was with working with Dan so much that I was kind of like, okay, I got to try this stuff out again. And then now I'm just getting so obsessed with these things, and I'm trying out games that I never would have liked or even wanted to. I've been a big component for mine has been like, I hate like Souls likes and stuff like that. And Lies of P was one of my favorite games ever at this point. Still haven't beaten it yet because I'm at the end and I don't want it to end, so I'm not gonna finish it. No, it's never gonna end. It's too perfect.
That's such a great feeling, though. When you know you're about to finish a game and you're like, I can't. I do the same thing with books.
There's that, but also the second to last boss is kicking the shit out of me, and I'm just like, I don't need to be mad right now. So yeah, I'm not playing that part of it.
Don't end up like me, Louis, like I did with Bloodborne, where I got stuck on like I think the third or fourth to last boss, and I never beat it, and then it took me 4 years to come back around and finally beat that game. And I'm
probably gonna be like that.
Screw you, Bloodborne! I'm getting everything. It took me
probably
forever.
Gonna be like that. Yeah, I'm probably gonna do that. I don't know. I also don't want it to end because it's so beautiful and it's so good and it's so wonderful. And
maybe we'll get another one or a DLC. So
I know, right? Jeez. Okay, so there's that, and of course, right now we were talking about this before, that my game of choice at the moment, one of the best horror experiences I've ever played so far, is Alan Wake 2, which I didn't play Alan Wake 1 until last year, and that was because I wanted to play Control.
Yeah.
And then I finally got Control because it came out free on Epic, so I'm like, okay, I got to play Alan Wake now. So I got right before the remaster came out, by the way. Like, not even the launch was explained. So I bought original Alan Wake. Now I think I want to get the remaster because I want to see what they did, because I heard that they put more elements in there. So I got Alan Wake 1, then I got Control, and then I played Alan Wake 2, basically all in like the last 6 months. So I am really like, I get the lore.
You mainlined it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so goddamn good.
Like Alan Wake 1 is a little rough nowadays, but still there's a lot to be loved
the
there.
Gameplay is rough, but the game is so good. Like, that is expert, perfect writing. I can't get over how good that writing is. And the same thing, like for me, Control, I love it, and I love that it's got horror elements. It feels more like SCP, the game, which I thought was really, really cool. And then, so it wasn't scary by any measure, but the elements of horror, that little tinge,
and its style, like the game, it's one of the most stylish games I've ever played.
Stylized and just dripped in horror without being horror.
Yeah.
And I don't mind the hordes of things that are happening, like I did with Alan Wake 1. But like, I was like, oh, here we go again. But like with Control, I liked the gameplay, I liked the fights, I liked the fun, and there's a really good level up system. And I'm not too big on the level up system or the fighting as much in Alan Wake 2, but they got it perfectly down. Like this feels like the perfect zombie kind of game, even though it's not zombies, because like just one guy is hard to kill. So anytime that you get into a fight, like I hate that people are going like, the gameplay is stupid. Like it's really not. It's engaging and it's terrifying.
Usually when people complain about Remedy gameplay, it's because they haven't played a lot of their games. It plays exactly like you expect it to. As far as like the gunplay, the combat specifically, it's exactly how I expected the game to feel. And I hope they never change. You know, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to get into it, but it's my special kind of fixation. Like I love it.
On a similar notion, I feel like Quantum Break suffered a similar tragedy because people weren't aware of like, oh, this is Remedy and it's made like Remedy makes games and it's a Remedy game to its core. And I remember when that game came out and I was loving it and playing the heck out of it. And there was a lot of negativity around the people like complaining about the gameplay and how it feels weird. Yeah. And like, it's like, but this is a Remedy game. Like it's the people who made Max Payne. It's the people who made Alan Wake. This is how they make their games. This is how they add a different sense of style as well as weight to the combat and the way that guns feel and the way that you shoot. You never just shoot anything in a Remedy game. You know, it's never just straightforward blasting things. I mean, a little bit more so in Max Payne because that was still kind of like their early breakings into
Well, I mean, that's where you see them kind of forming a lot of things that still persist in their games. Like I joke about it a lot, the Remedy hallway. Where and either you like immediately get what I'm talking about or you don't, but they will have at some point your hero will be at the end of a very long hallway and there will just be like 4,000 dudes and they're coming at you and you have to figure out how to navigate that in a hallway. That's it. It's in all of their games. Like I don't know. They've never managed to get rid of that one. I hope they don't, but I always expect the hallway. And that was, you know, like that. I know that as a company, they kind of want to differentiate themselves from like Max Payne because that is what made them famous. But it's, to me, like it is a really important part of the journey that they have taken as a studio with just all of their creative efforts. And you can, like I said, you can see how they arrived at Alan Wake 2 if you play Max Payne. Or at least, you know, I can. I feel like I can.
I think if you spend enough time digging into a lot of the lore, you can see where all the strings attach. And
if you're a crazy person like me, yeah.
I mean, seeing the face of Max Payne in Alan Wake 2
love that face
consistently. Like, I, you know, when you first go into her Mind Palace thing, the Mind Place, I saw his picture on the thing and I'm like, oh, that's funny. So they're just making like a nice little cameo. If you're, you know, if you're like me and you look at every pixel, like, oh, that's cool. And then you finally meet the guy and I'm like, oh my God, he's such a centralized character. And it's so good. I love these things.
I still remember playing Quantum Break and there's parts where you find TV shows about Alan Wake. Like you'll walk around the environment and like I remember running along in that game and hearing Alan Wake's voice and I'm like, why do I hear Alan Wake right now? And turn around and there's Alan Wake on a TV narrating his TV show. And I'm like, okay, so I just sit there and I watch it. I'm like, is this an Alan Wake TV show? What am I watching right now? And I just sat there for like a good 10 minutes watching this until it finally went off. And this is throughout the game. You'll find this kind of stuff. It's like,
I love those TVs. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is something that also showed up in Max Payne. I mean, they've been doing like the TV shows within the universe from the very beginning. And not always live action. They haven't always had the budget or the ability to do that. You know, it used to be just like a single screenshot on the little TV. Yeah.
Little flipping screenshots and things.
A little cheesy effect that did a lot. But yeah, they've been building this universe for such a long time. Like you can tell that this was maybe not planned completely, because of course they had to go back and fix some things from like Alan Wake 1 has gone through some changes in Alan Wake 2. They've had to go back and like change a little bit in the story to make it fit. Because it came out a long time ago. Like 2010 was a long time ago. Ew. That it's old. It's getting old, and there are certain things that you do narratively that worked in a game in 2010 that just don't work in a game in 2023. But at the same time, you can tell that they have had this connected universe on their wish list probably since the first Alan Wake. I would say that that's been like I'd love to do that someday, because they're so self-referential, and that I love that. I love that they make space for jokes about their own work. It's wonderful.
Oh yeah, no. The tongue-in-cheek moments are some of the stuff that I live for. Like I was talking to a friend the other day who's like, I don't like horror that has comedy in it at all. I want it straight. I'm like, that's not even how the human mind works. like you have to have some levity. You have to have little moments. And comedy, I've made this argument 1,000 times, and I will make it 1,000 more. Comedy and horror are synonymous. They are absolutely, like I tell people, I used to do script doctoring. If it doesn't work, make it funny. If that doesn't work, make it horror, because you can do either way and it's going to fix itself somehow. I
think in my mind, I kind of connect those things with like the concept of catharsis, how like we want to watch something or play something and laugh because it expunges those emotions. It allows us to get something out of us that was sort of locked in. It's the same reason, we love to watch a sad movie. When you ask yourself outside of the situation, why would you want to watch something or play something that makes you cry? In the moment, feels good to be a little bit sad. It's kind of nice. And I think horror, a controlled sad. But then with horror, it's a very similar thing. Like, I love that feeling of being scared, and I love that it sort of cleanses that. And I think comedy and horror go together because it feels good to be scared. It feels good to laugh. Like they kind of go hand in hand.
Well, there was somebody that pointed out in a video I saw a long time ago that they were saying, how much more fun is it when your friend goes, ugh, and you go, oh, you dick. Oh, but then like, if and this is why certain games don't work that are just constant, scare. And especially jump scare, is that after a while, if that friend keeps going, oh, it's like, okay, dude. All right.
I get it.
Yeah. The adrenaline runs out too.
Yeah. Like, going back to a game like Outlast, that game kind of wore me out, where eventually I was so tired of being like jumped on that I'm like, I gotta play something else. Like, I need a break. Whereas something like, thinking of a moment, in Silent Hill 3, when she goes into the bathroom, and you have the save file on your memory card, and she's about to reach into the toilet for whatever's stuck in there, and then goes, ugh. Who would do that? I have never laughed so hard in my life because I needed that laugh. I had been terrified for hours. And then finally I get to this moment. I'm like, because I did reach in the toilet in the other game that I played. I did that.
I think that's a perfect note on all of that. And sadly, we're going to wrap up this conversation here because it's fine. Pretty much hit on everything that we were going to talk about. But yes, absolutely. I kind of wish I had spent a little bit more time with some of the Remedy games leading up to this conversation, because now, like, I've played all these except for Alan Wake up to this point, but I didn't quite finish Control yet. It's a little bit of a sad story to go along with that. But we're going to save that conversation for another time, as we need to wrap up this conversation and this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, Katie, and sharing with us all these wonderful tales and stories and your journey with HellDivers.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
We are all, the three of us are peas in a pod, I think, when it comes to like the horror and what we like in a video game, because this conversation feels very familiar. I
forgot we were doing a thing.
We're doing a thing.
Okay, what do you mean we have to end? Oh,
no, I have to end, sadly. So to close us out here, again, thank you, Katie, for joining us. Thank you, Louie, for being here. And thank everyone out there for hanging out with us today. Be sure to keep up with CouchSoup and check us out on CouchSoup.com, where you can read articles, watch more podcasts, listen to our podcast, where you can also listen to us anywhere you listen to podcasts. And you can catch us a day early on the website or watch us on YouTube the day after on Fridays. And that's going to be it for us today. Thank you, everyone. That's game over, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.